welcome to the Regular Joe's podcast. I'm Dave Pisani.
I'm Barry Kay.
And I'm Todd Pleasant.
I really felt I had a little Michael Buffer going there in the beginning.
Yeah, there was a little Buffer tone in there.
Still have this, still have phlegm, if you must know, people.
This is like, what, week 8 of phlegm?
I know. It's stuff doesn't go away anymore.
I'm on week 7, and I still sound congested, although I'm not coughing anymore.
I've had the same exact thing. I don't know what it is.
It's our health update, everybody.
Long-term COVID effects.
Old men talking about their illnesses. Good podcasting.
No, but everybody's talking about it.
Get off my lawn.
That's right.
Bastards. Okay, we got a couple different things. Well, not a couple. We got something different we're going to talk about. We're talking about old movies. We'll get into that later. But
and not the movies you would think.
Not the movies you would think. Yeah, we're expanding. We're expanding our discussions. But let's start this off from the bat. I don't know if we didn't even talk about the pre-show, but rest in peace, Carl Weathers. We probably usually tack this stuff at the end, but yeah, he died pretty suddenly, and he was young.
Yeah.
Now that we're pretty old, but he's young, 76, I think.
Yes. Yep.
And I know it's over a year ago, but when I saw him at Rhode Island Comic Con. Not this past year, the year before.
Wait a minute. When you blew him off? When you walked away in disgust?
When I decided not to pay him $300 for an autograph. But listen, this is an in memoriam. I'm not going to call him Greed Karga today.
Or Apollo Greed.
Or Apollo Greed. But yes, he seemed to be the picture of health. I mean, that was over a year ago, so obviously that means nothing. But
he was in Mando and other stuff, I think, and directing, and we don't know what his.
But they said he went peacefully in his sleep. So
okay,
but it's a shame, way too young. I know
way
a lot of
young,
people.
Yeah.
Ming-Na was saying how wonderful he was, and Sylvester still, not to me personally, but so yeah, it's a shame because it's so funny. This guy's had like four careers, or a football player, then Apollo Creed, then he sort of did some comedies, and now he's in the Star Wars universe, so he definitely and directing, so it's a shame.
It is he'll definitely be missed.
Yeah, for sure. And I
think
he's
well remembered for his work.
Exactly. He's got a Super Bowl commercial.
Yes, which I wonder if they're going to pull.
They said they were going to tweak it a bit. I read it today. I don't remember what it was for. It may be one of those online betting things, I think.
Yeah. So
I just read they were going to make some tweaks to it. Whatever that is, I don't know. But that's crazy. So anyway, rest in peace. There's definitely a lot of your work we've appreciated. I know that. Let's go some random. Do we have random?
I've got a couple. Yeah.
Okay.
You want me to go
Barry,
first?
why don't you go, since you got a couple?
All right. I know that this is going to get you guys both really excited, but Jim Cameron has confirmed Avatar 3 is nearly complete.
Oh, Jesus. Who would have thought the second one would have done so well?
Okay, let me ask you. So this is going to be in the desert? Is that right? Because he did the...
I don't know.
He did the forest, and then he did the water one, and it's...
Well, here's what he said. He said, it's pretty much in the can. We're shooting pickups on 3, which is just filling in the last 2 or 3%. And we've got live action pickups in June, and that's another couple percent. Then he said, we're about a quarter of a movie in on the 4th one. Because I think they shot most of it up front. But then he said, we're in post on 3 now, doing VFX. And it'll take every second between now and when it gets released to get it done. But he's basically saying 3 is just about done.
How did Avatar 2 do?
I think it did pretty well.
Made like $1 billion. Which
I didn't.
I saw it.
I saw it. I am so meh about that film.
Yeah.
Me too.
It didn't.
Me too.
I liked the first one. It was an event. I saw. Did I see the second one home? Yeah, I didn't see it in the theaters.
I saw it in the theaters, and I
did too.
I enjoyed it, but I haven't thought about it for a half a second since I saw it.
Yeah, it wasn't anything spectacular.
So there you go. Avatar 3, nearly complete.
I'm thinking it wasn't Namor wasn't in. What movie was Namor in?
Namor was in Aquaman, wasn't he?
No, Namor was in.
That's the thing you say wrong. I said it like 3 months. It's Aquaman. It's not Aquaman. Remember I said there's something you say
you
wrong?
couldn't know what it was. That's what it is.
I do remember you said it. Aqua.
He wouldn't have
like-
been. No.
Yeah.
Namor was in what? Was he in
And Wakanda.
Thor?
Oh no! Wasn't he in?
He's
He
in
was
Wakanda
in the
Forever.
the
that
second Black
Wakanda
Panther
Forever.
movie. Yeah,
But
Anyway.
it's Wakanda, not Wakanda. So, anyways,
that's true.
Whatever. They all suck.
when
movie
Aquaman
sucked.
goes to Wakanda, it's a hell of a time.
Anyway, okay. We'll come back to you. Todd, what do you got?
So, I read one of these ridiculous clickbait articles that referred
Was it
to
Bridget Fonda?
that. No, it just it basically implied that Kurt Russell was going to answer the question of whether or not he, who was actually the one who was infected at the end of the thing.
I read that. You know what that's from? There's a video.
Oh yeah,
There's
but
a
it's
Vanity Fair
it's
video
like
or something.
Again, the headline was very deceiving. It's like he answers the question. Yes, the answer to the question is no one knows, and
No
that
one
they
knows,
were
yeah.
never told. And it's like, wow, that's where you're at right now in terms of writing.
Yeah, it was. I did watch the whole. I watched the whole little snippet. It's like a 20-minute thing.
Was that
Him
worthwhile?
Going over his. Did you watch the whole thing? Or
No, I didn't. I just read the.
It was him going over his.
Yep.
They talked to act. I don't know if it's Entertainment Hollywood or Vanity Fair or whatever. People talking about their most kind of characters. So he went through everything. He went through Tombstone and Snake Plissken and all that stuff. But
He's had some good roles. He really has.
yeah.
Yeah, he really does.
He's got the best hair. It's all gray now, but he's still got that
He does
long
have the
hair.
best hair.
It looks
And
great.
always has, and that was one of the things that I think in Guardians 2 was when I think he was one of the first times that they really got somebody right when they de-aged them, and it was all his hair. It was like
Yeah.
as soon as you saw that hair, it was like, damn, they got this down. So
Yeah.
yep.
Well, I saw an interview recently with Michael Biehn, and they asked him flat out, "Did Kurt Russell direct Tombstone?"
I
And
saw
and
that
he
from
said
the
no.
Michael Rosenbaum
Yes, yeah.
podcast. I saw that too. Yeah, that's a little all over the place. He says it was a committee thing. I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Whatever. Kurt Russell's the man, though. This is not a news random, but I won't spoil anything. But I went to see the movie Argyle this weekend.
Oh, did you?
Oh, you were one of the few people that went. Apparently,
It got killed. $18 million
$18 million.
it did at the box office.
Yeah.
And it's a $200 million movie. Michael Vaughn, who I like. He did
Can
First
you give
Class,
your
I
spoiler
think.
free thumbs up, thumbs down? Did you like it?
Yeah, I can give you a spoiler free thumbs up, thumbs down in a second.
Okay.
And he also did The Kingsman. I liked the first
Yeah.
one. The second wasn't so great. And Kingsman, I did not like. I don't know if he directed
So
that.
Matthew Vaughn.
Who did I say?
Michael.
Oh, yeah, Matthew,
Okay.
whoever. Vaughn,
Yeah,
some Vaughn
okay.
dude. I hate to say I wouldn't go to the theaters to see it. We were just looking to go to a theater to see something, and we like him, and we like everyone in it. Bryce is good in it, and everyone's good in it. There's some hokiness to it.
Is it at least a straightforward enough story, or is it convoluted?
It's a little convoluted, but not like that you can't follow
okay.
it.
Is there a big unexpected twist like they were teasing?
Yeah, there is.
Okay.
I would like
But
to see it, but
not
I had
something
no
earth-shattering.
plans to see it in the theater.
My guess is, so the thing is, it's an Apple movie.
You and everyone else, Barry.
Yeah, apparently, except Dave and Pam.
And it was nice because we went to Alamo, which we always do, and like 5 seats next to me were empty, so that's always nice.
Yeah.
Because I only really go to the Marvel movies, and it's jam packed. But it's Apple. It may be on Apple. So even
about
that
15
Flower
minutes, yeah.
Moon thing,
Yep.
it may be on Apple in a month.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there was some hokiness to it, but it was. I wish it was better. I feel like I have not seen a good movie in I don't know how long. Everything's been like, eh.
Well, I'm debating. I feel like I want to go see Dune 2 in the theater, but I don't know if I'll actually make it with everything that I have going on these days.
I'm going to see it in the theater, and I feel that's a safer bet because they've got a story to follow. This is not going to be a movie by committee, which is what we're suffering through now. We're seeing all these things that are so focus grouped and so, so planned that you end up with either nothing or it's just, no one cares.
Yeah, I don't know. I left that up to Pam. I think she liked Dune better than I liked it. So if she wants to go, I'll go. But I don't know. Because it'll be probably a while. Warner Brothers has been taking a long time. It's not like it'll be in the home thing.
Yeah, that's going to be in theaters for a little while, and then it'll take a break before it comes to Max.
I did watch the last Mission Impossible last night. It's on Paramount, I think.
Yeah.
I mean,
does it hold up, Dave?
It does hold up after 5 months or however long it was.
Yeah, I watched that a couple weeks ago when I was on my way back from California. I watched it on the plane.
You watched it on a plane? I mean, come on. You need a big screen for that.
Well, if I hadn't seen it in the theater already, that wouldn't have been the first time I watched it, but I knew what was coming, so.
Our pal Haley, that's a handsome woman.
She's great in that movie.
Yeah.
It's a nuanced performance.
It's a nuanced performance.
You don't even have to say that because we're not disagreeing with you.
But they had the trailers for a couple. They had the Ghostbusters trailer. I will absolutely go see that in the theaters. That's March 22nd. That's
coming up
soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that. Anyway, Barry, more random.
So this goes back to what you were saying about seeing a headline that makes you want to read the article. And then I read the article, and the article was like 3 sentences. But so MegaCon was in Orlando this past weekend. And
Paul Pell Eben was down there. I watched his Instagram. He had a lot of cool stuff he was doing.
Oh yeah, and he got pictures taken with Hayden and Ewan
Yeah. I should have gone down for that. What the hell are we doing here?
Look, the whole cast of Entourage was there. It was like a good
Entourage was there.
Yeah.
He had the pictures with.
Did you do that intentionally, Barry? Because we were ripping you on. Entourage.
But Marissa Tomei and Ming Na was there.
Yeah, there was a lot of people there.
All of I think everyone from Back to the Future was there, including Michael J. Fox.
Yeah, it was a great guest list. Yeah.
Yeah, we should have gone to that.
Well, so Paul Bettany was there too, and he was asked, "Will he be returning as the Vision in the MCU?" The question that the fan asked was, in any way, shape, or form will Vision return, or are you going to return to the MCU? And Bettany said, he took a long pause and said, "Well, yeah, I mean, why wouldn't I? ? Yes, 100%. So he says he's coming back as Vision in something. I guess we'll see.
Interesting.
Or he just answered the question however he wanted to answer it and doesn't really know.
There's a lot. It's funny. Today there were a couple other things like that. One of them was, so Jeremy Renner said, "I'd absolutely love to come back as Hawkeye." And Josh Brolin's like, "There's rumblings of Thanos coming back." Again, I didn't read the article, but that was definitely clickbaity. As opposed to Ned Beatty, squeal like a pig.
What we have here is a failure to communicate.
That's not Ned. That's Cool Hand Luke.
Oh,
yeah.
Deliverance.
Not Deliverance. You're confused. Yeah. Just Deliverance is he sure got a pretty mouth.
Oh, I'm mixing up my movies.
Anyway,
yes.
That was my next one. Todd, did you have something else?
No, I'm good.
Okay. In Tim Burton news, so Beetlejuice 2, called Beetlejuice, comes out September 6th of this year.
Yeah.
There's a teaser poster.
There's a teaser poster, but there's no trailer. Which
I know,
there's 50 trailers online, but none of them are real. They're all fake.
Yeah, it's such bullshit. That's been really bullshit. And he's also thinking his next project is a remake of Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, the 1958 classic. So there you go. That's today's Tim Burton news.
I will say.
You know who else? You know who's not a piece of shit? Fanboy Collective.
Wait. I think the title to Beetlejuice 2 is brilliant. I think it's absolutely brilliant.
It's not a stretch.
It's not a stretch, but they've
not
done
a
a lot
genius.
worse. They've done a lot worse, and I think, yeah. So,
Wait. What's it? What's the full title?
Beetlejuice.
No, it's something like Beetlejuice 2024 AD.
I like it less now. I think just the idea of it being Beetlejuice, is just so much better than...
That's what's on the poster,
okay.
But I thought the 2024 AD is something to do with it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't been paying very much attention to it, to be quite
honest.
Anyway,
I went through almost the whole thing without complaining. Fanboy Collectibles, check them out. There are some cool things there. Did you have something else to say?
It doesn't matter. I had one more thing.
Go for it, Barry.
Forging ahead.
Dave is moving us along.
Let's
talk about Troy. Yeah, let's talk about Fanboy.
Okay. Toshiro Mifune action figure. The guy was in Seven Samurai and Yojimbo and all these classic things. These obscure companies are doing some really cool.
I am fighting the urge
items
to order this thing. This if you look close at this figure, I mean, they call it a statue. Okay.
No. The company is called Infinite Statue,
right,
but it's an action figure.
That's what I'm saying. It is an action figure. But what they did really, really smart on this thing is instead of having interchangeable hands, it's got interchangeable forearms with hands attached, so that you never see the wrist peg.
Oh, that's cool.
And because the rest of
they are
inside his tunic, and they got pretty much every iconic pose, including him like stroking his chin, and I love Yojimbo, and I almost wish that like his tunic was a little more weathered, but yeah, I might have to get this. This is really nice, and I have not seen this company before, but
neither have I.
I'm really impressed with this, and I love that they came out with it in two flavors to kind of capture the whole
Ronin and Samurai one, which is cool.
Capture the whole breadth of his films.
Also, I think it's in stock now. Hot Toys Buzz Lightyear, which is cool that they made a toy from a
so
movie.
Meta.
Yeah, it's awesome, and it comes. What's this guy's name again? I don't remember. The cat.
Yeah. What was the cat's name?
It comes with the cat. Anyway, it comes with the cat. So that's awesome. That's in stock. There's a Hot Toys Han Solo from Return of the Jedi. Also,
it's about time they finally made another Han Solo figure.
Yeah, they've been making a lot of Lukes, not a lot of Han Solos, so that's cool. But there's Pops, and there's Hasbro, and there's Sideshow, and there's statues, plenty of statues, all kinds of statues. What do you want? Name it. They got it.
The cat is Socks.
Socks, that's right.
Yes.
So check those guys out. Fanboycollectibles.com. Check them out at their store in Newtown, Connecticut. Tell them the Regular Joe sent you. Okay. Topic of the day is basically the question, can old movies still hold up? Now, we're not even really talking about genre movies. We're talking about just movies. So I'll tell you where this came from. I've been writing down some just random ideas I had. So I saw a commercial for The French Connection. It was going to be on TCM or something like that. And I'm like, I haven't seen that in a million years, 25 years. I'd like to watch that. So I rented it or whatever. I think I actually paid for it. And so The French Connection won the Academy Award for Best Picture in 1971. And I remember it, but I'm like, got to see this gritty, and it's directed by the William Friedkin, I think, who just passed away. And boy, did that not hold up at all. So
explain that to me. What do you mean by not holding up?
Even the storyline was, even the simplest thing of like, what's the storyline? A, B, C, D happens. It was very convoluted. It was convoluted. I was shocked at how, to me, it felt like today's modern filmmaking, at least for good movies, is so completely different. And then I asked my question: is it because it's 50, probably more than 50 years old, 53, 4, 5 years old? Is it just it's its own thing that just maybe didn't? But it was a little shocking that it won Best Picture, and it just. Not even that it was gritty and all that, which it was, but just even the whole mechanics of the story wasn't there for me.
I think there's a couple of things. Like, one of them is that, and you're talking about a movie from 71. Movies in the 70s in general were dark and depressing. A lot of them. And I feel like some of these movies were artistic in their time. But I feel like some of those big swings that they made and some of the choices that they made seemed unique at the time. But when you look back at them 40 or 50 years later, they just don't make any sense.
So if you look at that year, it's the contenders were A Clockwork Orange, Fiddler on the Roof, French Connection, The Last Picture Show, Nicholas and Alexandria. So all very, very different films.
Yeah.
Okay. But
now we kind of looked at lists of everything nominated. Yeah. That's not the list. There could be 10 other better movies that weren't nominated.
Oh, absolutely. But that's
and I go off the top of my head. I don't know
what made that stand out to the Academy that year? And I think it's exactly what Barry said. I think it was this. There was a kind of gritty realism that people thought was avant-garde at that time, and were like, this is the lighting in that is probably very different than a lot of the like kind of police procedural films around that era. I think this was more, and also you didn't go with like a conventional leading man type as the lead. Popeye Doyle was not, did not look like Warren Beatty or somebody like that. It's very much about the sensibilities of that moment.
Yeah, but it wasn't even, and I tried to, look at it like, I get it. It's for its time. Even, it's funny because and we'll get into this, period pictures hold up better than non-period pictures, but 50 years removed, you could almost look at it as a period picture. My issue was, and I'm sorry, William Friedkin, may you rest in peace, the storytelling was not great. It was just really, it was unimpressive.
But it was a type of movie people hadn't seen before, maybe.
And I'm not even complaining like, oh, it won Best Picture. I'm just saying, here's a movie that's award-winning or not, just well-known. And I was like, really incredibly simplistic, not really, you didn't really get from A to B, and not in an avant-garde way, just you needed a more solid storytelling, I thought. So then I'm like,
okay, you go. I was going to say, I have a similar example, and this, in your case, you had seen it before, but it had been a really long time. I had never seen Doctor Strangelove before, and my son wanted to watch it a few weeks ago, so we sat down and watched it. And I'll admit, I'm not a huge Kubrick fan. Most of his movies don't land for me, but I don't understand how this was such a popular movie. And I think a lot of it had to do with the humor just didn't work for me.
That today. To me, and I've seen that in film class. That's, I think, the example of this completely different type of storytelling, which is a little avant-garde and out there, but where the French Connection was a linear movie. It wasn't anything. So those are different, and I get it. I don't get that movie at all. I don't think how people think it's brilliant.
I'm watching that movie, and the character comes on the screen, and I'm like, that's the guy from Blazing Saddles. That was literally my only reference I could make in that movie. So
we are a lot more used to satirical films than they were in that time. And I think it's a satirical, you can call it a dark comedy, you can call it a bunch of, but I'm saying this was basically everyone's fears just kind of amalgamated into a satirical comedy. And that was again, it was very different at the time. And I think
And the guy played Peter Sellers played a couple different roles.
Oh, yeah.
It was a
characters,
little out
yeah.
And if you go through, stuff, I mean, so much stuff, to use your phrasing, doesn't hold up because it's so locked into the time that it was in. It's very, very rare to have a film that's utterly timeless. And
That's to me the question. Now, that's where is it just is everything old? Just don't get. But okay, and again, it has nothing to do with the Academy Award winning, but it's an easier context because there's a zillion movies.
Can I throw a group of films at you just for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I read a book on the written on the 1967 Oscar nominees. Okay, and it basically detailed. You would actually really like this. Pictures at a Revolution, and it was about what went behind making all of these films. Okay, and one of the interesting things was I found in the list that you sent today, one of these films was the lowest rated on the entire list for the 2 decades. And so
an Oscar nominee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the heat of the night, guess who's coming to dinner? The Graduate, Dr. Dolittle, and Bonnie and Clyde. Now, of those films, what holds up today?
I haven't seen a lot of those. I've seen most of those, and I have not seen them in a very long time. Bonnie and Clyde probably is a little weird, but it holds up. Again, it's a period piece.
It's a period piece, and I think it survives in that way. I also
what
think
were the other ones? Dr. Dolittle. Dr. Dolittle is a period piece too. I think.
No, well, it is. It's Dr. Dolittle is the lowest rated one of them all, and it was basically the kind of nod to old Hollywood, the old Hollywood production style thing.
I feel like that was one of the last genres of the 40s, 50s movies.
Right. But it was a kids movie too, where most of these other movies aren't,
and a musical, and right. So it was a big budget bomb, and they tried to they put a lot of effort into trying to get it on the list to bolster it.
What else was in there?
The Graduate. Guess who's coming to dinner?
See, now I have The Graduate on my list, and I haven't seen. I feel like The Graduate could hold up.
I do too, and that's what I'm saying. I'm saying
because that's the question.
Mired in its time.
I think The Graduate could hold up, but I think that there's some stuff in there that, with fresh eyes, you'd look at it and go.
But does it transcend the times?
In the
and I think there's movies like that.
When you look at it, it's not pretending to be any time other than it is, and the story, I think, encapsulates that kind of generation. And not that young people have had things a whole lot easier since then, but it was a weird era, and I think it catches that really, really well. And then the other two are a comedy and with a comedy and then a drama, both tied into the race and culture.
Those are and again, there's nothing wrong with them being rooted in their time.
Yeah,
and that's not the only reason they don't hold up, but.
But I had also written down in my notes, and it's interesting that we're all we all came to the same conclusion. The movies, even movies in the 70s that were made to be representing the 50s and 60s, seem to hold up better to me than movies that were shot and meant to be in their present day.
Right.
Yes.
Like The Godfather is a great example.
No, The Godfather's the other example. So The Godfather won the Academy Award the next year. Now, here's the thing with The Godfather. The Godfather is a period piece made in the 70s, started in the 40s, and probably went into the 50s. Excuse me. It 1,000,000% holds. I've watched it 3 times in the past month. It's been on all the time. It 1,000% holds up. Now,
yes.
Is that because I think it's more than just it's a period piece.
Oh, it's also a masterpiece. But
it's a masterpiece. Where the movie the year before doesn't hold up for me.
Godfather is also the food which directors today were fed, so that because of that, it's revered. There's techniques from that movie. There's storytelling methods from that movie that have carried over into tons of other things we see, to the point where it's overdone, like when they do it in TV shows and stuff. But
when you look at those 2 movies next to you, one is running circles around the other.
Oh yeah,
and just
no
from
question,
a
but it's
storytelling
also, like I said,
everything.
It's also, you're taking it to think you got to not, when you think about Oscars, you got to separate yourself from what the movie viewing community is thinking at that moment in time and think about what the industry is thinking at that moment in time. Because it's the industry that nominates these movies, and it's the industry that votes in these movies. This is not a People's Choice Award.
Yeah.
But we also don't want to go too heavy on the Academy. I mean, we're using lists of Academy
We're
Award
using that
nominees.
just because it was a
saying
teasy
is,
list of
Barry,
movies.
it's
I
like
agree with that.
These people think that this is the next thing. This is the next big thing. This is a revolution. This is a change. This is whatever. This is edgy. This is what film is going to be all about.
They may not think it's
and then
the
15
next
minutes
big
later,
thing.
it isn't.
But they may not think it's the next big thing. I think a lot of it is that they see it as something they haven't seen before. That doesn't mean it's going to be the next big thing.
Right.
When it becomes the next big thing, all the movies that follow usually aren't as good as the thing it was trying to.
I also don't think anyone sets out trying to, like, we're going to make something completely different and everything. And you read a ton of these movie books, you watch these documentaries.
Sometimes
you're just trying to get something done.
But you look at something like
But
Everything Everywhere All at Once,
Kubrick.
they were trying to make a weird movie.
In the 60s,
which one?
Every director was
Everything
watching
Everywhere All at
French
Once.
and Italian films
Yeah, that's like a Kubrick movie.
and trying to figure out what to do and what to do next. So,
the whole. I was getting to the contention in my mind that it's rare that a non-period movie holds up as well as a period movie, like Godfather sets apart. So then, when I was going through the lists in my head, can you, off the top of your head, a 70s movie that's not period that still absolutely holds up today?
Jaws.
Exactly.
yeah.
Jaws does not matter that it's 1975. Absolutely still holds up.
I think Rocky probably
Barry
falls in
just
that
said
category.
Rocky.
I have
I agree
Rocky
with that 100%.
on that Rocky as well. You know what I also have? And I've All the President's Men. I watch that movie at least every other year. I think it's brilliant, and it's still, to me, again, this is all just my
I
opinion.
think any historical thing
Absolutely
though is
holds up.
technically a period piece, whether it's
But it
filmed in that
wasn't
period.
at a time. It was
No, but
made
it
in
is.
75,
Your mind,
about
when
74.
When you're attaching something to a set of events, you're making, it's
Right, because 30 years later, when you're watching it, it doesn't matter that it was made about a year before.
It doesn't matter they're not
it's
using
telling a
That's
historical.
true. It was about a time, but
right.
again, I do think it's more about storytelling and filmmaking. And
So I would add to that. I was going to say I would add history based to period piece as
Another thing that I looked
I have
at,
a ton of period movies.
but I was even thinking about a movie like Network. In its day, it was telling a story for modern times, but it's a story people probably can't relate to anymore.
But you want to know? I wonder if they can, because the funny thing is, if you compare Network, which I haven't seen in a long time, to, I don't know if you guys watch the morning show, that's almost the exact same stuff that's going on.
broadcast news.
And it's all about the same thing, but
Except
it's
that
one's streaming and one's a network.
But
and,
but they don't have no single show has the reach that they had when Network was talking about.
Yeah.
It was one
I'm
of
curious,
4
I
networks.
haven't watched it in a while.
Yeah. But the front
there's
page,
a ton of
the front page, network, broadcast news, the morning show, okay, media things that are set in their time do date, okay, but they're also being locked into their time by virtue of the ethos of that moment.
I also feel like once we get into the 80s, most modern day movies had technology in them just by the course of them making a movie, a current movie, that it's impossible to look back on now and not feel like it's dated.
Yeah, no,
So
that's true.
either
That's
it's
why
the
I kind
TVs or
of
the
concentrated
computer
on
screens, or once you got into cell
1980.
phones and you see the giant cell phones or even the flip phones, you look at it and it's hard to imagine it as being relatable and current. But you didn't have that in the 70s.
I think things become of their time, and it's just a matter. I will say one of the things when you make a film and you make everything current for that moment, and you don't have anything, like you don't have any old stuff or whatever, that's when it looks really, really old. When every suit that every single person is wearing is from the year 1995, that film's going to look dated really, really quickly, and yeah, it's just, it's hard.
But it's interesting. Yeah, but the pre-'80s, like Jaws and Rocky, and it's not like, where's their cell phones? You know what I'm saying? Some of those 80s movies made a point of, the big cell phone, like...
Well, but I was even thinking about Working Girl. That was on the list of 80s nominated movies. It's the big shoulder pads, and it's the printouts, the giant printouts that they're going through. Like,
that still holds up for me because the story is so good.
Does,
but that's what
it's the 80s.
I was thinking pre-80, because you get into
that's what the 80s
whole
like.
other genre.
No, I know it is, Todd, and we remember that. But if you ask a 20-year-old to watch that movie now, they wouldn't be able to relate to it.
You think that's true? Because the story is so good, though.
I don't know about that. I think we look at it, I think you could take the nostalgia element out of that, and it's
it was also an era when it's far more accepted now for men and women to be equals in the workplace. When those movies were made, they weren't, and I think younger people would look at that and go, the hell is this all about?
But that wasn't the storyline, really, because she worked for a woman.
Right.
Yes. That was just somebody at a lower
absolutely.
position trying to get ahead. I think you could show that, especially to somebody who works in more of an office setting. And while there may be a couple things like the suits and stuff that are a little out there, they may totally get it. Just like we watched Jaws, and there's definitely 70s stuff, but everything else is so compelling that it doesn't make a difference.
Now, what doesn't
and
hold
I've just
up,
seen Working Girl a year ago. I think it totally holds up.
I'm agreeing with that. What doesn't hold up is the Working Girl TV series. Do you remember that?
I do.
Who was the girl?
Sandra Bullock.
Was it really?
Sandra Bullock was the
God.
lead. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another. I think that movie's it's such a slice in New York too.
I think there's
I
a lot
watched
from
it
that
like a
era,
year ago,
a lot from
and I
that
didn't-
era that just doesn't work. And I
You don't think
that
it holds
does.
up?
I didn't think it held up all that well. I watched it
I
like
think it
last year.
totally does.
Okay, so I'm going to give you an example of a period thing that I don't think holds up.
A period,
MASH.
okay.
MASH. When was the last
You
time
know
you saw
why?
MASH?
I think it's
The
because of the
movie
style
MASH?
of comedy, not so much the fact that it's a period piece.
And filmmaking.
It was a little weird.
I tell you, the TV series MASH actually holds up better than the film MASH.
Yeah.
The film MASH was a
Yeah.
little psychedelic and a little bit, just edgy and intentionally so. That it doesn't work. I don't think it would work with an audience today. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I had a bunch of other. I mean, there's a ton of period. Butch Cassidy, Lawrence of Arabia.
Okay,
The
Lawrence of
Sting.
Arabia was actually on my list as one of the things that can never be dated. Okay, I mean it is such an extraordinary accomplishment of filmmaking, and it captures that era perfectly.
Yeah,
And
that's
you
the
can
thing. Those things
criticize certain
totally can
scenes
hold
or
up.
whatever, and talk about the cultural insensitivities and whatnot. But it is an absolutely brilliant film.
But you look at a movie like Raiders of the Lost Ark, even. That movie could have been made in the 50s or the 40s.
I hate to say, but it holds up better than Star Wars probably does.
But
I wouldn't say that.
I'm not going to touch that comment, but I will say it was made in the 80s. It could have been made in the 70s or the 60s or the 50s.
It was made in the 80s to emulate a 1930s style.
Yeah.
Okay, and they basically said, what if we took, this story and we made it with modern techniques and not made it cheesy, or very cheesy, but you're right. I think it incredibly holds up, and when we say holds up, the one big thing here that just does not work in anything that's more than 25 years old, not anything, a whole lot of things, is pacing. Is our perception of pacing has changed so much. I mentioned earlier, Yojimbo, okay? It's an absolutely brilliant film. absolutely brilliant film that's been remade like 7 times, whether they've acknowledged it or not. And I think you'd have a real hard time getting audiences today to sit through that because just how it's, how it's paced. The other thing is films are shorter. I mean, they think nothing of longer run times than films today, and you're throwing a lot more at you. Scenes played out a lot differently in films 30, 40, 50 years ago, and the run times of those films were very, very often under 2 hours.
There probably was a lot of double features. There was no other entertainment out there.
Yeah.
Right. Television, wasn't what it is today, for sure.
Yeah. And Bonnie and Clyde that I mentioned before, it's an hour and 50 minutes. Yeah. And there's a lot in that hour and 50 minutes.
To go back to something you said before, though, like when I think of the term holds up, I think of it in 2 ways. One, will I watch it again and enjoy it as much? But I also think about if I showed it to my kids, would they like it? And there's a lot of movies that I'll watch that I watched 30 or 40 years ago and still enjoy, but they might watch them now and go, yeah, this is stupid, or I don't get it, or it's not appealing to me. But there are a lot of movies that I saw when I was in my teens that if they watched now, they would enjoy just as much. There's just fewer of them. Like to me, that defines
give us some examples.
I'd like I'd like an example. I'm not disagreeing with you. I think that's true. I mean, that generation, the 15 to 20-year-old generation is really messed up with entertainment.
I agree,
TikTok,
but
everything's all this bullshit. But is there something that transcends all that? I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the movies we've already touched on, but like a movie like Dead Poets Society that came out in the 80s. I think that would appeal to my kids if they watched it today because of the content of it. It was a period piece too, so it's not as going to feel as dated. Or a movie like
Jaws,
Platoon,
though. I think Jaws.
Jaws, 100%.
Yeah, Jaws, totally. And I think the movie's good enough and compelling enough that they look past the giant ties and the wide lapels, and it doesn't matter to them.
Yeah, I think where they have a harder time is that middle period where they see, outdated technology and have a hard time like putting their head around it. I don't know that kids today can look past some of that.
Yeah, they're like, oh my God, that's what cell phones look like? You're better off not having a cell phone. And it's just not, it's a non-issue.
Or they see a computer on a desk and the monitor is, this gigantic thing and they have they can't even, they've never even seen that in real life.
What about war games? There is a lot of computers in there,
I don't think war games would hold up for a younger audience today.
I think
the story is relatable.
You got to also give them credit for actually understanding that they're looking at something in a different era. I mean, it's.
I'm not saying they can't process it.
No,
I'm
but
saying
what I'm
would
saying
they enjoy it
as a whole? I mean, it's the problem with the difference between a period piece and something set in its time that that we've moved past that time is. You're creating the setting for a period piece and you're putting kind of things in there to set that stage, and you're pretty much more kind of using what's there or recreating what's there for the newsroom in All the President's Men or something like that. And yes, that technology is changing and the teletype's going to go away and all that kind of stuff, but I think you have to look at it in the context of the time. It's like, Lincoln is not going to go to the Ford Theater in a Tesla at any point. If he
did, maybe he'd still be alive.
Could very well be. Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, did you enjoy the show? Yeah, I think it's got a lot more to do with techniques and pacing. Yeah. Techniques and pacing.
And I think there's some standouts
overly
that still
avant-garde. There's a very good chance that it's just. I mean, try watching A Clockwork Orange today with.
I couldn't watch it in 1985. Okay. It was impossible to watch.
That's what I'm saying. It's but you can watch a lot of the French films and the Italian films and the Japanese films that the American filmmakers were looking at in the late 50s, early 60s for inspiration, and a lot of those things still do hold up. Seven Samurai is still a really great film. I mean, it's just like it's.
That was my. Is there something pre-1960 that can transcend that time gap. That's like, yeah, I could totally watch that. Again, I'm not trying to be
I think they're. I mean, look, go all the way back to the '50s. A movie like On the Waterfront. I think that totally, like, I think that would hold up.
That seems like it's almost a parody of itself.
It almost is. Yeah, I'll say that.
Not
I
now,
think
but it's turned into.
I think what survived from those eras are genre films, and I don't mean specifically like science fiction. I mean like noir, that fit into that kind of thing, because then it's in that noir bubble, that sort of thing. Romantic comedies to a certain degree, like your kind of Spencer Tracy, Catherine Hepburn kind of stuff.
Story.
And some of the epics too.
Yeah.
So like
40s?
Ten Commandments, Ben-Hur, The King and I, like those.
Exactly.
Hold up too.
Those are period pieces.
Those are period, but they're period pieces. But they're also
going.
Some of those don't. I mean, like The Greatest Story Ever Told is unwatchable, but the Ten Commandments is still, it's almost kind of hazy, and it's kind of, yeah.
So here's one.
Through.
Oh,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say an '80s movie, mid '80s movie that has dated technology in it, that has all the tropes of the '80s, but I think still holds up, is something like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Like, I think that young kids could watch that today and look at.
I think so.
All the old stuff and not get bogged down in that, because I think they could relate to the story.
I am going to show that to a focus group and test that theory. I agree 100%, Barry. I think that's, yeah. I think it probably holds up better than almost anything you could think of from that era that's a comedy.
What about any of the John Hughes stuff? I mean, some of it's crappy, but...
Yeah, I mean, I think 16 Candles would hold up better than Weird Science.
I don't think 16 Candles was ever good, but that's a whole nother story.
Oh, 16 Candles is a good movie.
Honestly, I think it's from that era. It's The Breakfast Club, and it's The Breakfast Club, and it's Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and everything.
I think Breakfast Club totally, because they're in one room basically
that's what I'm
the
saying.
whole time,
They wouldn't have their phones. So
nothing about them really looks any different than
Kids
you would
today.
see today.
Yeah.
I would think
and
so.
they're all
I would
archetypes.
be interesting. Show that to them and be like, "This is a new movie."
Yeah.
Problem is, half of them have probably seen it.
It is interesting that several times they have suggested redoing that movie, and it's been shot down every single time.
Yeah.
So
You can't redo that movie.
No, they shouldn't. They shouldn't.
Yeah.
I was going through the list of like pre 60s or pre 60s movies that I've seen recently. Again, this isn't trashing these. I'm just trying to say like what you look at that. I think what you were saying, like you go back to the 40s, the Maltese Falcon, all that's a whole different story. But
Right.
the 50s, like I've seen The Apartment. I don't know if you've ever seen The Apartment.
Sure.
I mean, I really enjoyed it, but
You got to look in the
It's-
context of its times. Anything like that, Barefoot in the Park, any of that.
I love Barefoot.
Yes,
in the Park.
but you love it because of your attachment to that film and one element to that film in particular. But
No, I actually directed that in college as a play,
Yep.
as a video thing.
Yep.
But The Hustler feels dated. Now Marty, which I had never seen, I saw it about a year ago. It won Best Picture in 1955. I'm like, there's nothing to this movie. Like, what the hell?
Yeah. There's a
But-
very good performance in that film, but
it won Best Picture,
I know.
Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, Best Director. I'm like, really? I mean, I'm not saying it's bad, but it's a simple, good, but it doesn't transcend
that is
its
almost
time.
a 70s Oscar-winning movie right there, where there, or actually no, later than that, in the like Daniel Day-Lewis era and the that sort of thing, where it was like, yeah.
Now, you know what a good example of that, which I do think sort of still holds up, and again, not genre, Kramer versus Kramer. That probably won 10 Academy Awards.
Yeah.
But that sort of holds up to me. Cane Mutiny, 1954,
Absolutely.
a period piece,
Yep.
totally holds up.
Yep.
So, And we're not necessarily making any sense here. We're just making
No, I think
commentary on our opinions of this stuff.
No, this is just a discussion. We didn't really prepare for this, so it's interesting to get everybody's perspective.
One of the reasons that we're not seeing and hearing about the films that don't, to some degree, hold up, is they just fade into obscurity. So a lot of films are just ephemeral, and particularly from the eras when it was the dominant, form of media, that just kind of faded away. It is amazing how many films from the 50s, 40s, 30s, and back to the 20s that no print of exists. Okay, there's a number of them. That,
a lot of that was on this nitrogen-based
yeah, but I'm
stuff
saying,
that
but like there was just no incentive. It was meant to be a temporary thing.
Yeah, but it's funny. Some of these '60s movies, like The Apartment, they're in black and white still, which is crazy to me. Why would you make that choice in 1960? There was a huge cost difference in making right.
when they were making the original plan for making Bonnie and Clyde, and was to make it as a black and white film, and they were trying to have a French director, and that was the original plan, and the budget was something like 20% of what it ended up, what they ended up going forward with. It was going to be made as a black and white film, and that's, Barry, have you ever seen Bonnie and Clyde?
I actually have never seen it.
Is that Sam Peckinpah? I've seen it years ago.
No, it's I don't remember who the director is, but it's not a big name of the director. I mean, it is amazing, and that movie got made, and a big part of it was because Warren Beatty actually produced it. But one of the interesting things with that movie,
Arthur Penn, he is the big director.
Yeah, is everybody knows who Bonnie and Clyde is. Everybody knows who, right? Barry, you know who they are, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay. Prior to that movie, if you weren't in West Texas or you weren't intensely focused on like crime studies and stuff like this, they had faded to obscurity. We didn't even know. No one knew who they were. They had to explain who they were when they were trying to sell the concept to this film, and digging up old magazines and things like that to do it. It's one of these things where things just become part of our culture, whether we've absorbed them or seen them or not. That's another kind of holding up. When you make that kind of impression, when you leave that kind of footprint, that whether you've seen it or not, you know what it is.
Well, it's like Butch Cassidy. I don't think most people know who Butch Cassidy and the
perfect
Sundance
example,
Kid are.
But everyone knows who it is.
Whether they've seen the movie or not, they know the names.
Likewise, I think everyone who's never seen Jaws thinks they know the story. And because there's just so much of that out there, and there's not a huge number of films that carry that kind of weight culturally. So,
but there aren't that many films that are that good either.
Yeah, I agree entirely. And then you get things like I would say to a good degree, I think a lot of the spaghetti westerns hold up, but they very much kind of merge in your head too.
Yeah.
So I will rewatch one of those every 5 or 6 years and be thinking, oh, that was in this film, because
you can't tell the man with no name stuff. I can't keep any of it straight.
Yep. So, but they do.
Well, that's sort of random thoughts on movies. I mean, I feel it's funny. I feel good that I've seen a lot of this stuff recently. Check out TCM. They play a lot of this stuff, and none of it's all like French Connection. I had to go find and rent. It was almost nowhere to be found. So
what I found maybe most surprising as I did a little bit of prep for this was how few of the movies from the 50s and 60s and even the 70s that were nominated for Academy Awards that I'd actually seen. Like, I know the names of a lot of them, but I was like, have I seen that ever? Or have I seen it in 30 years or 40 years? And it was a lot that I hadn't seen. I
bet I've seen more than 50% of both of those lists.
Yeah, me too.
I bet I've seen fewer Oscar-nominated films in the last 20 years than I have of the 60s and 70s.
Oh yeah.
Well, there's just so many more movies now, and
Right, but it's also just it's different kind of things where, there's a lot of significant movies from those eras, but also a lot that, as you said, just don't hold up.
And there's some movies that are just, it's funny how many their movies are that, like a movie comes on and you'll watch, whether it's Shawshank or A Few Good Men, and like, I'll watch those anytime. But a lot, The Sting, Jaws, All the President's Men, Rocky, I'll watch those anytime.
Does The Sting hold up?
Come on. Yeah, it's a period thing, so it holds up.
It's a period thing, but it's kind of a.
It's a good comedy that's
thing.
not super simple.
Yeah.
It's there's twists and turns to it.
Yeah.
I just watched that maybe 6 or 7 months ago.
Good. I honestly,
was...
I have fond memories of it. I like the film. Never watched The Sting 2. And
God.
I like
or Butch and Cassidy, the whatever years.
Yeah.
The early years, whatever. Butch and Cassidy.
There's a whole bunch of twos that you don't need to see.
You really don't. Really don't. That could be a whole other episode. Never go for the second helping. Don't do it.
Grease 2. Have either of you seen Grease 2?
Michelle Pfeiffer.
I know, but that doesn't save it.
It's horrible. I gotta say, Grease 1 doesn't hold up. It's that, and I love Olivia, you know that, but it's so. I can't watch it.
Strongly disagree with you that
based
movie
on
does hold up.
You put in a certain box, okay?
No, but the other thing is, some of those songs, it's interesting.
It holds up from an entertainment value.
That's what I'm saying. You're looking
But
at a
some
film
of those songs are
with
so
actors in
ingrained
their
in
late
your
20s to
head
early
that
30s that are supposed to be high school students, okay?
Oh my God, yeah.
And
you know what I could watch?
Rizzo was practically 40 in that movie.
Yeah, this is
I
what I'm
could
saying.
watch Saturday Night Fever more than I can watch Grease.
And I'm the opposite.
Saturday Night Fever is gritty in a lot of ways, and it's not. I mean, again, I think a lot of people have a certain perception of it based on
because they've never seen it. They know the songs,
but they've never seen it,
and they know the dance moves.
There's some heavy stuff in that movie. Beyond that, and it's beyond the dance scenes.
Well, it's funny because I remember when it came out, like when you grew up in the 70s, you either leaned into disco or you vehemently hated disco. And we, in our house, at least me and my brother, hated disco. Now, my parents loved that movie and would play the soundtrack. So to me, my early exposure to that was like, oh my God, this music. Now, I can watch that and the music is just more in the background to me because the story is
yes.
Well, but that movie was a tale of two things. It was the soundtrack, which people played and had never even seen the movie.
Absolutely.
And there was the movie, and those songs happened to be in the movie, but they're not.
That's
the
how I
focal
can see
point.
that now.
Yeah.
The music doesn't bother me the way it used to bother me.
Well, and honestly, if you listen to, when I think of the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack, I just think of like those 5 Bee Gees songs.
Yeah.
They're not really disco, really. I mean, there's a little... The stuff that came later was way worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could go on my rant about the Bee Gees. I actually
give me an example of what came later that's worse than that.
I think a lot of the Donna Summer stuff that came, like the heavier disco stuff, like the Bee Gees were barely disco.
Right. No, I know. I get that. But I'm saying, but you think
talented.
that's worse?
You
think
not like
the
the
Donna
Bee Gees,
Summer
or you
stuff
do
is
like
worse?
the Bee Gees, Barry?
You both were talking over each other.
Sorry.
I'll answer Dave's question because I heard it. Todd's question I didn't hear.
Yeah.
I like the Bee Gees, actually. I liked the Bee Gees before they did their disco thing.
They were talented.
Don't know why I knew their music when I was a little kid, but I did. What was your question, Todd?
I was saying, you think the stuff that's actually more pure disco is worse than the poppy stuff that they did for the faux disco stuff?
To my musical tastes, yes. I really couldn't connect to the heavy dance disco-y stuff, but the Bee Gees stuff to me was kind of like rock music with a little bit of disco beats thrown into it.
So maybe the stuff that's a singer that just sang a song that some songwriters churned out for them. I don't have any good examples of it, but where the Bee Gees wrote, produced, sang, did all that stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess the difference in our ages is showing here, Barry. I spent a lot of time dancing the Donna
in a white
Summer stuff.
Polyester suit on the flashy dance floor.
I totally skipped the white polyester suit, but like I said, I did go to a lot of clubs, and there was a whole lot of Donna Summer and a lot of that stuff. And like I said, we would have laughed if they played the Bee Gees. So just a different timing.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I mean, it only takes that couple of year difference in our age to have a big means
inside looking out, outside looking in.
Yeah,
and we look probably pretty silly in the inside. So,
Interesting. Okay, let's go a quick round of what's in the box.
Show you with the box. Who's in the box? What's in the box? What's in the box?
Regular Joe's What's in the Box.
Is everyone prepared for this? Todd, what's in the box?
So I was looking for something else last week online, and I stumbled across this. This is a hardbound volume of Black Widow stories. I have the original issues, and these were some of the original solo stories. They were in Marvel Fanfare and a couple other publications. But I saw this book, and it was hardbound, and I love hardbound comics. And it was signed by the author, Ralph Macchio, and not
Ralph Macchio.
No.
Not the Karate Kid, Ralph Macchio.
Ralph Macchio, not Ralph Macchio. Okay, I was really trying not to say that backwards. Sorry, Ralph. Anyways, so I bought this. It was signed by him. He was the writer in the stories. George Perez drew them. Very, very cool. Okay, didn't know it at the time. I was buying it from him. So.
Oh, wow.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you can get yours too, and at a very reasonable price. So
was it on Amazon or was it somewhere else?
On eBay. And
that's cool.
So when I bought this one, another one went up. So I think I probably paid $5 more than cover for it. So very, very cool.
Worth
it. That's exactly what I paid. It was $5 more than cover for it. So so he's still out there and signing. What do you got, Barry?
I got something real small. Came yesterday. Our friend Tom Spina, who, if everything works out, will be on the show next week. He's got a Regal Robot collectors group on Facebook, and they made a collectors group exclusive pin. That is the Regal Robot logo in the old school Kenner Star Wars toy font. So this came yesterday. That's the only thing I've gotten in the last week.
That's cool.
Dave, what's in the box?
It's winter here in the Northeast, and it's cold. And I'm like, I have this, every time I come home from work, or I work from home, or I go and put a sweatshirt on, I have my pile of sweatshirts that are like wearing, and I'm like, I need more sweatshirts. And then I said, I'd like some cool sweatshirts, like, well, you can't get them, but the official Regular Joe's 500th anniversary sweatshirt, which I wear a lot. But I went on TeePublic, who I get a lot of t-shirts from. They also make sweatshirts. This one I'm wearing is
nice. I was thinking, I saw the gorilla arm with the rifle in camera a few times. I was like, that's awesome.
I could have ordered like a dozen, but I only ordered 2. And then I got this other one that's a Nostromo sweatshirt.
Oh, wow.
That's nice.
I didn't know that they made... I know they make t-shirts, but I didn't know they were making sweatshirts.
I did not either.
And these are
they're nice
quality.
They're good.
They're these Gildan like
those are good.
Nice quality. And then they had a sale. They were $30.
Wow.
So
good.
There's a ton of them, but I only got a couple. But they had Soylent Green ones, so they're all made by artists. So
I know you're particular about how the print is on the material, so you're happy with the quality.
Yeah, these are good. This is sort of supposed to be weathered. So is that one, actually.
Because sometimes, like the one you're wearing right now, it's a lot of color, and sometimes that gets very thick and uncomfortable.
Well, that's the thing. I would never wear this on a t-shirt because it's a big piece of rubber on your chest. On a sweatshirt, it doesn't matter.
Right.
So, I see and you could choose the colors of the shirts.
Nice.
I see myself buying more of these because they're comfortable. I wear them a lot, and there's a zillion designs, so you can get whatever you want.
Did I ever tell you guys this story when I wore my Nostromo hat? Not my regular Joe's hat, my Nostromo hat to the canoe race. Ever tell you that?
No.
Yeah, a very, very elderly woman came up to me and said, "My husband was in the Navy also." And I was like, what is she talking about? And then it occurred to me that I've got this very naval, looking Nostromo hat on. And I felt like a jerk. But my husband was in Navy also. Yeah, I could have said, yeah, we lost my whole crew. But
yeah, it's amazing what those that poor crew went through.
That's right. That's right. Yep.
Okay, that's a show, everybody.
So I know you already did our final thought up front. I do have one other thing I wanted to mention, which I didn't talk about up top because you went straight to our sponsor.
Okay.
It'll just take a minute. I watched a documentary on Netflix yesterday that I want to recommend to people who might be interested.
We Are the World.
Yes. Did you watch it? Did you watch it?
Now Howard was talking about it.
Okay.
One of my coworkers told me about it.
So it's called The Greatest Night in Pop, which I don't like that name, but we'll get to that. So it was the making of the USA for Africa, We Are the World, excuse me, back in the 80s. There's just a lot. I mean, obviously I know the song. We all know the song. We've all seen the video 100 times, but I don't really think I ever knew the story behind it, and it's actually kind of interesting. Lionel Richie hosted the American Music Awards that night, and then 10 o'clock at night, they all went to the studio and worked until 8 o'clock the next morning. Like, the guy was literally hosting the award show, won awards, and then went and did this thing. And it's just wild to see how they put it together and to hear some of the stories from the people that were there. Like, Bruce Springsteen was, like, literally finished the Born in the USA tour the night before and was not going to be at the Music Awards, but they got him to fly in and be there. And my favorite probably part in the whole thing, poor Bob Dylan. Like, Bob Dylan is a music legend, but so they get Bob Dylan there and he doesn't know what to do. Like, they're singing in this group setting, singing the choruses, and they even said to the people, if it's not your range, it's okay, just don't sing. Don't try to harmonize. Don't try to do an octave below or whatever. So he's just sitting there not singing because he can't hit these notes. And they had a solo portion for him, and he can't figure out how to make it work. Stevie Wonder takes him over to the piano, and Stevie Wonder mimics Bob Dylan Bob Dylan and shows him how to sing his part like Bob Dylan. It was amazing. And then Bob Dylan walks over to the microphone and does exactly what Stevie Wonder just told him to do, and it was perfect.
That's amazing.
So I definitely recommend it. It's an hour and a half. It also made me look back and go, all right, I understand, like, the Band-Aid thing was all British singers, so this was all American singers. Yeah. But there were a handful of people that were in the room that you're just looking back through the lens of time going, why were they there? Like Kim Carnes.
Yeah.
That's what Howard was saying. There were people.
I didn't hear Howard. It was very good. I'm not repeating what he said.
Because it was that. It was
exactly
of that era.
She had a hit song.
This was an extended after party.
She had a hit song.
Yeah.
But, like, why was Dan Aykroyd there? Because he was in the Blues Brothers, I guess.
Blues Brothers was big back then.
Yeah. The Greatest Night in Pop is the part I don't get. It was not all pop singers.
No, but it was a
but what else
encapsulates
all that different music?
I guess, but but forgetting that, it's definitely worth watching, and it's worth watching just to hear the parts about how they tried to get Prince to show up and he wouldn't come.
Yeah, and again, these are the people that, like I said, the award show's over. They get in their limos and they go in different directions, and it was amazing that he could pull this off.
Well, they had coordinated well in advance. They knew all the people that were going to be there.
That's how they knew everyone was going to be in the same place.
Saying. I'm saying this was. It took someone with his clout to pull this off.
Well, it was him, Quincy Jones, and Michael Jackson.
Yeah,
really,
and that's
that were able to make it happen.
None of those people are people you say no to in that industry at that time.
But the other really interesting thing was they brought Bob Geldof in to address the crowd at the beginning of the session, because most of these people knew that this was like a charity thing and they had to be there or whatever, but I don't think most of them really knew what was going on in Africa. And Bob Geldof basically levels the entire room by telling them, like, how bad it really is. He's like, I was just there. This is how bad it really is. And you can just see, like, everybody's face goes like, oh, that's why we're here. But anyway, I definitely recommend it. It's worth watching.
I wonder if they uncovered the video to this, like, after years of not knowing it was around or something.
It's weird that this thing just came out now. You're right.
Yeah.
But it's almost like Lionel Richie was like...
Sometimes they vault things like this because they don't have, clearances from everybody. And it's
Or they just didn't know what to do with the footage until
exactly.
now.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to detract attention away from the cause also.
But I also feel like Lionel Richie might have been to somebody like, hey, where's that footage? Like, that was the craziest night of my life. Like, we need a documentary about this.
Yeah.
The one and I said this to Maria, and this is just my cynical nature, but they didnn't show any cocaine. These guys were up all night and had been in an award show all day.
Sure.
They definitely cut around it.
There's a Coke
This was the
valet,
mid-'80s.
okay?
These guys were all doing coke.
There's a Coke room and a Coke valet, and he's
Yeah.
just like, it's like, Julio, come over here. Yeah.
Oh, the other really funny part was because Prince didn't show up, they needed somebody to sing the part they wrote for him, and they're like, Huey Lewis, you're going to do Prince's part. And they're interviewing Huey Lewis, and he's like, I've got to do Prince's part?
Huey Lewis was big back then, too.
It is interesting looking at that and that is a moment in time. It's
Yes.
a moment frozen in time. And but Kim Carnes is a perfect example of that. Yeah.
Yes. But it's an easy watch, and it's worthwhile, so check it out.
Cool. Check it out.
So
And thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
thanks for listening.